Woolly and wee woolly, they are Woodrow Wilson sheep. Woolly and wee woolly, they are the White House sheep.
Play ball!
What are you doing, wee woolly?
I was enjoying this beautiful day and I found this old baseball. It reminded me of that photo of President Wilson and Edith Bowling Galt at the World Series baseball game. They looked so happy. I remember that President Wilson loved baseball, but then I realized I don't know much about Edith Wilson, President Wilson's second wife. Do you know much about Edith, Woolley?
I know a few facts. Let's see. Edith Bowling Galt Wilson was born in Wytheville, Virginia. She was the 7th of 11 children and was related to Pocahontas.
Pocahontas, who was married to John Rolfe and connected to Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement?
That's the one. Growing up, Edith had very little formal schooling. Mostly she was taught at home by her grandmother. As her grandmother got older, Edith helped care for her and her canaries.
I'm not sure about caring for canaries, but go on.
After some formal schooling, Edith went to live in Washington, D.C. with her sister. This turned out to be a good decision.
Did she meet Woodrow Wilson then?
Not yet, wee woolly. She did meet Norman Galt. His family ran a successful jewelry store near the White House. Mr. Galt and Edith got married in Wytheville, Virginia in 1896.
I bet she was happy in Washington, but still missed her family. Wytheville and Washington, D.C. are not very close to each other.
Good point, wee woolly. Several of her family stayed with her, and some even worked for Mr. Galt at the jewelry store.
It sure sounds as if she was enjoying married life and living in Washington, D.C.
Indeed. In 1904, something very exciting happened to Edith. See if you can guess, wee woolly. I'll give you some clues. Clue number 1. Edith was given a large gift from her husband that cost $1,600 in 1904. That would be over $44,000 today.
Since he owned a jewelry store, I'm going to guess jewelry.
Good guess, but no. Clue number 2. The gift had wheels.
Oh, he gave her a bicycle. What fun.
Bikes are fun, but that was not the gift. Clue number 3. The gift was electric.
Let's see. Big wheels, electric. I believe I am stumped. May I have one more clue? I do not like to give up.
Sure. Clue number 4. The gift is like your favorite artifact at the Presidential Library.
Wait, my favorite artifact is Presidential Wilson's presidential limousine, the Pierce Arrow. Wait, big wheels and electric? Edith got a car.
Yes, wee woolly, good job. In 1904, Edith was the first woman in Washington, D.C. to be issued an operator's permit, or as we call it today, a driver's license. Her car was an electric car. People of Washington, D.C. said that when the policemen saw Edith coming in her car, the police would stop traffic and let Edith pass by. Remember, wee woolly, back in those days, very few women drove a car, let alone owned a car.
So Edith is married to Mr. Galt, but when did she meet Woodrow Wilson?
What a great question, wee woolly. Unfortunately, in 1908, Mr. Galt died, leaving Edith the jewelry store and very much alone. Once Edith was certain the store was successful and running well, Edith decided to travel to Europe. Now, she did not want to go alone, so she traveled with her friend Alice Gordon. Now, funny coincidence, Alice Gordon will marry Dr. Cary Grayson, President Wilson's personal doctor.
I'm still not seeing how these two are going to meet.
As you remember, President Wilson's first wife, Ellen, died in 1914. The president was so sad and lost without her, President Wilson's cousin, Helen Bones, tried to help him in the White House since there was no First Lady. Can you guess who was a friend of Helen Bones?
Edith!
Yes. One day, Helen Bones, Edith, and Alice Gordon went out on a very muddy hike. Helen invited them back to the White House, mud and all, for a cup of warm tea. Edith said, "I turned a corner and met my fate." President Wilson says it was love at first sight.
Aw, how soon did they marry?
President Wilson proposed after 2 months, but Edith said she needed more time. The two would go out for rides in a presidential car and enjoy dinners together, but very few people knew that they were dating. Now finally, in October of 1915, the world found out that they were engaged when they were first seen at the World Series in Philadelphia. The two married in December 1915 at Edith's home in Washington, D.C.
So how was Edith as a first lady?
Edith was a very busy first lady. She hosted dinners for important people and raised money for the war effort. Remember, she was First Lady when President Wilson asked Congress to declare war against the Central Powers during the Great War. It was Edith who sold the wool from our ancestors who grazed on the White House lawn. Like all Americans, Edith and Woodrow did their part for the war effort by rationing and following all restrictions so we could help our soldiers. She rationed certain foods, gas, and flour.
Edith sounds like a very good First Lady. I heard that when President Wilson got sick, Edith took very good care of him.
That's right. Edith always traveled with President Wilson. She went with him to Paris when he was working on the treaty to end the Great War. She was also with him in 1919 when President Wilson began to suffer from the strain of his cross-country train trip. He was trying to convince Americans to support his League of Nations, which was a part of the treaty.
Isn't that when the president had to cancel the remainder of his trip and return to Washington, D.C. due to his health?
Correct. Again, Wee Woolly. Unfortunately, a few days after the return to Washington, President Wilson suffered a severe stroke and had to stay in bed since the left side of his body did not work. And very few people knew how sick our president was. Only Edith and Dr. Grayson saw him daily.
But he was president, so who ran our country during this time?
Many people say Edith did. Edith was like a gatekeeper in that she determined who got to see the president. She always said she was her husband's steward. Edith wanted her husband to remain as president because she believed being president would give him a strong reason to recover. Slowly, President Wilson improved. He completed his term as president, and the two moved to a home in Washington, D.C.
I imagine they enjoyed a slower pace, probably nothing like the life in the White House.
President Wilson did indeed enjoy rides in the Pierce Arrow and going to baseball games. Unfortunately, after 3 years, President Wilson passed away in 1924.
Oh no, poor Edith. What did she do next?
Oh, Edith stayed very busy. She worked very hard to make sure the world would never forget her husband. She worked with the Presidential Library a great deal. After all, it was Edith who gave the Presidential Library your favorite artifact, the Pierce Arrow.
Oh, cool. So how long did Edith live?
Edith lived a long time. She died on Woodrow Wilson's birthday, December 28, 1961, at the age of 89.
You know, President Wilson was a very lucky man. He had 2 wives who were smart and made his world a better place.
That he did, Wee Woolly.